What are we expecting a week today, then? Is he going to throw his hat in the ring?
It sounds like it.
A red MAGA hat?
Yeah, he's obviously indicating that he will do that. I mean, at least he had the decency to wait until after the midterms. By most historical measures, it will still be very early. I think it's been really difficult for him not to do it. And I'm guessing his advisors or the inner circle, asked him or insisted that he wait. I think some of these rallies would have been better if he focused on the candidates that he was endorsing or that he was supporting. I mean, I'm glad he went, and that's great for them. But the focus, I'd hoped would be a little bit more on the candidates.
Look, the Republicans are set to do well over the next day or so. And, in many ways, that's kind of part of the electoral cycle, isn't it? You'd expect that in midterms. But do you think that an endorsement from Trump is a blessing or a curse for some of those candidates? And do you welcome Trump announcing if he is going to next week?
A few thoughts there. One is the candidates that he's endorsed are going to win. It's not necessarily because he endorsed them. In fact, you can argue it made it more difficult. Some of the candidates were not perfect and first-time candidates, which is refreshing. But it's the first time they've actually ran a campaign, which Senate races are very difficult. So you've got 5 or 6 Trump-endorsed candidates. Ironically, the Democrats actually supported several of these candidates, like Boduk in New Hampshire. And so if they win, it will be sort of a slap in the face to the Democrats, to the party that actually supported the pro-Trump candidates. But I think that perhaps other candidates would have had a better chance at winning. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for Trump because his candidates won. You can argue the other way. But the bottom line is his candidates will win. The Republicans are likely to take most of the toss-up races. It looks, obviously, the House is already going to be Republican. There's no doubt about that. So, there's a real momentum right now.
And do you want him to announce?
Look, I think it's good for him to announce because it's the great mystery, and I'd rather just, in a way, get it over with. Ron DeSantis, I think, will run. I think Ron DeSantis has to run. His political capital is so high right now that it would be almost a waste if he didn't. So if Trump wins the primaries, if the election was tomorrow, he would win the election. Right now, he's polling up 25 over DeSantis. But prior to Mar-a-Lago, he was only up +9 on DeSantis. So after Mar-a-Lago, he went from +9 to +39. Now it's back to 25. So I think you'll see Ron DeSantis slowly creep up again. And there's a good chance he could win.
Do you want your party back?
Meaning as in not Donald Trump's party?
Well, yeah, because it's not the Republican Party anymore, is it?
It's not your grandfather's Republican Party, and it won't be. Whether it's Trump or anyone else, that country club Republican, Bush, McCain, Romney party is over. And so I would like to see Ron DeSantis or Mike Pompeo or someone else because they're younger, they can serve 2 terms, they don't have some of the baggage. But surely if Trump runs, if the primaries were tomorrow, he'd win. So the party has definitely changed in terms of the base and the electorate. They're doing really well with Hispanics right now. They're going to do much better with African Americans. So the party has improved. Trump, I thought, did a great job as president. He governed much more conservatively than I expected. I was a bit nervous about that. So, look, his administration was quite a success if you look at outcomes.
But in terms of what struck me was, and it's very difficult, but to try and remove it away from the politics a little bit.
Sure.
It was Obama, in the clip we had in Catherine's report, was saying what is problematic is when we demonise our political opponents.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't just blaming that on the Republicans. He was talking about both sides.
Yeah.
But that's what Trump actually, that's what he did and grew as a culture.
Even within his own party, going for sanctimonious.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's not healthy, is it?
No, I never liked it. When it started, in a way, his candor was refreshing, but it's also unseemly. And yeah, we'd all like to go back to the Ronald Reagan, who was polite and optimistic and positive. Trump tries to be positive. You saw that in the clip. But when he gets into the name calling, it makes it a little less pleasant. So, yeah, I'd like to see Trump without some of the bad manners. And I think you'll see that with Ron DeSantis and Mike Pompeo. They're fighters. You know, Kristi Noem in South Dakota, even Nikki Haley to a certain degree. You know, I think the party grew tired of winning the philosophical arguments but losing the fights because the Democrats just fight harder. And so the pushback, you know, the way DeSantis, for example, handles the media. You see this with Kerry Lake in Arizona, who will win. You know, they really push back when the media is dishonest, and I think that's healthy. So the name calling, no, we could do without it. But by the way, this whole election denial thing, it didn't start with Trump. It started with Stacey Abrams in 2018. It started with Hillary.
Well, it goes around the world now. You're seeing it in Brazil, wherever it might be. It's the thing.
I think both sides should dial it down. I'm glad President Obama said that. He also called out the Democrats for their wokeism and he called it the buzzkill party a few weeks ago. I mean, he's smart enough to be honest about these things.
Just finally, I want to ask you, when you talk about the Republicans being unrecognisable from your grandfather's country club party, American politics in general unrecognisable from 2 generations ago. I mean, it's always been a divided democracy.
Sure.
But the polls are so far apart now. They're so polarised. Do you think that there can be any way forward? Because politics, is it broken, do you think?
I don't think it's broken. And if you look at the institutions work. You know, the Constitution, which was this near-perfect document, has survived, and it will.
Well, does it work? Just because the whole gun law argument and the whole problems with these shootings in schools, we look with horror, don't we? We're grateful that we don't have a codified constitution, so we can move with the times.
But the problem is when you don't actually enforce the Constitution or enforce the laws. And that's the problem right now with the crimes in cities. Guns are illegal in Chicago, but they don't prosecute the criminals for gun crimes. And so they're back out on the street a day or two later without bail. And that's why there were 1,000 homicides in Chicago. The same thing's happening in New York and New Orleans and Baltimore. So the institutions work until they are not enforced, or until the institutions that are in place are not necessarily taken seriously. And what you saw over the last 2 years was the progressive left trying to undermine the very institutions that have worked for 250 years. You know, they want to make the judiciary less independent. That's worrisome. They wanted to they wanted to change the filibuster. They want to make, Washington a state. Anything that they can do to win. So they're happy to undermine the institutions. And I think what we need to make sure is that the institutions are preserved, and they have survived. They survived some very difficult times over the last few years. So.